So here we're going to take a look at a particular type of graph, something called a tree. Now before we formally define a tree, just to get some visuals going here. So here trees, we're still going to be looking at graphs, right? Simple graphs here, but we are going to be looking at trees that have a specific type of structure, right, to kind of help us visualize here. And I'm sure from what our working class, we have some intuition as to what this looks like. Right, here's an example of just a file system structure. Right, we have root, directories, and then a file, right? And then sometimes a decision tree, right, where we kind of ask ourselves a series of questions, each leading down towards either another question or some kind of endpoint here. Right, now, keep in mind that here, while this decision tree, right, some of these might have different structure where a question might lead us back to the starting point or just some other point along the graph, right? So just keep that in mind, right? This is one specific instance of the type of graphs that we'll be focusing on here. Right? And also this idea of like inheritance hierarchies, right? Or here we have like the general class of shape, right, and all its subclasses here, right, which inherits the properties from the ones above it, right? So here, square has all the properties of a rectangle. Rectangle has all the properties of shapes, what we define as shape, right? But not properties of the triangle, right? They're not connected in that manner. Okay, so that's the motivation here, to describe structures like this, to have a specific type of name for these structures, right? So let's define what a tree is, right? So a tree is very simply is a connected graph with no cycles. Right? Again, by cycles, I mean simple cycles, right? Where we can start at one pin and then do a path of edges, get back to any a vertex that we've already visited. And we can see that all of these examples, right, if we think of these as our simple graphs, have that property. Okay, now these examples that I've shown you here, these are a particular type of tree called a rooted tree, where we can see there's a particular root that we have, and it all kind of flows from there. But that's not really required. Right? As we can see here, we can graphs like these these are also two examples of trees. Okay. Okay, so these are two examples of trees, right? We're not really don't really think of it as a rooted type tree where it has like something where everything kind of flows out of here, but still trees, right? Remember, tree, a most basic definition of a tree, or just the definition of a tree, is a connected graph containing no cycles. There's added structure that will require, like the hierarchies and decision trees, where there is a root to these trees, but those are very specific types of trees. In general, tree is just, if it doesn't contain a cycle, then we call that a tree. All right. Now there's also something that we call a forest. Right. a forest is a graph containing no cycles, right? So if we think of these, so here, forest is a graph containing no cycles. Okay, so it essentially strips out this idea of connected. So if we think of G and H as just representing one graph, then it would be a forest, right? Where it has parts that are not connected, right? And each one of those parts doesn't have a cycle, right? So when we connect the graphs of forest, it becomes a tree. All right. Okay, so we'll get into more properties in the next video here.